This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
It's the devil, okay? It's not human intelligence!
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Happy Friday to you all. I hope you are having a lovely day, a lovely afternoon / evening, or wherever you're at. Yeah. All right. Anyway, we got some stories today. You know, there's little stories. Some tiny ones, maybe some, a little bit of importance, Trump, for example, ranting about a sock drawer. I'm not kidding. Not kidding. We have the Twitter files. Wait, did they actually uncover shadow banning? So we'll get into that. That's interesting. We have the crying bigot from Congress getting called out by her nephew. That's so good. I love it. We have Kirsten Sinema, of course. We are going to address her leaving the Democratic Party. Yes, there's that. And then we are going to get into a little bit of antitrust. There are, of course, two very important antitrust bills. And, of course, corporations are still trying to block it. With that, why don't we dive in? We're going to start out with the Clinton sock drawer. I'm not kidding. Clinton sock drawer. Amazing. Okay. All right. Well, let me just... Boom. Former President Donald Trump started off his Friday morning with an all-caps rant about seized documents. Yes. So let me show you that. He posts on Truth Social or Pro Central or whatever. What is going on with the FBI and the Justice Department? They're literally called the Justice Department. Okay. They seem to be totally out of control. There is right now a weaponization of justice, the likes of which our country has never seen before. The Twitter and Facebook scandal has already proven to be, with the possible exception of spying on my campaign, their most sinister act in history. Even the rhinos and the weak are openly admitting that the 2020 election was rigged. What? But in a darker way than ever thought possible. So many lives destroyed. Yes. So many lives were destroyed by things that did not happen. Okay. So, again, unhinged And in all caps, by the way. Caps lock, not cruise control for cool. Don't do that. But anyway, he then, after that, he's not done. Well, do you think Donald Trump's done? No, he's never done. No, he then commented on the Twitter files. The vaunted Twitter files. All right. Here's what he said. Elon, the Twitter releases are a revelation in that they show, in a very powerful fashion, the FBI and justice illegally colluding. No, it's not. Proving conclusively in one more very powerful way. Very powerful. That the 2020 presidential election was rigged and stolen. Your capitalization right there. What everyone is really waiting to see, however, is the Twitter information and thought process leading up to the time of the so-called election. Yeah, election. Right. And ultimately the deplatforming of the president of the United States. Big moment in history. Thank you. Hey, Trump, you realize you're not banned on Twitter anymore. If you wanted to get Elon Musk's attention, all you have to do is post there. You don't know how thirsty he is for you posting on Twitter. Oh, that's right. You can't do that because if you do, you'll get sued by the investors in True Social. Oops. Yeah. So, but no, what's funny about this, look, everything's funny about this because it's ridiculous. But does he think that somehow Twitter went and switched votes? How is that? How does that prove conclusively in a very powerful way, the most powerful way, the tremendously powerful, that the election was rigged and stolen? What? No. And by the way, thinking, going to the thought process of banning Donald Trump from Twitter, well, he did kind of, use social media to incite a literal attack on the Capitol. I'm just saying, that's the thought process. Kind of a big deal when you incite, a riot, and use social media to do so. But okay, that said, he finished his rant with this, and this is where the Clinton sock drawer comes into play. I know it's bizarre, but stay with me, okay? So now he says, under the Presidential Records Act, in the very well-established Clinton Socks case, the raid of Mar-a-Lago by the FBI and the taking of documents and many other items was illegal. Everything should be returned at once. At once, I say. I can't. What did I tell you, though, yesterday? He's going to be like, you should give everything back. Just give it all back. Stuff that doesn't belong to you. That's why they took him in the first place, because it didn't belong to you. The classified documents specifically. But look, he references the Clinton Socks case, which is interesting because back in September, his lawyers, he was urging his lawyers to try to use this, and his legal team ended up not adopting the strategy, and I'm going to tell you why. So, for one, there's nothing salacious about the sock drawer, just in case you were wondering, all right? But it was a 2012 ruling considering a former president's power, in this case, Bill Clinton, to decide what is a private record and what is a presidential record. All right, or a Presidential Records Act document in his post-presidency. So this seems to be, something that might relate to his case because he's got all these documents and he's saying that, no, these are my personal documents. But they're not. They're not, though. So more details on this, more context. During his White House tenure, Bill Clinton spoke at some length with Pulitzer Prize-winning author Taylor Branch. And as part of the project, there were many recordings of their conversations. According to one 2007 account, the tapes were at one point stored in a sock drawer. Why? I don't know. Now, here's the thing. Who cares? Oh, you did an interview and you spoke at length with with an author and a little project. There's some tapes. Who cares? Well, it turns out conservatives thirsty for any kind of scandal. In fact, Judicial Watch, who is which is a conservative group, they filed a lawsuit demanding that Clinton turn over the recordings. Why? Why would you want those? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, it's a Presidential Act recording. No, it's probably something that they would attempt to use for some sort of political hit job. Again, I'm not somebody who's a fan of the Clintons, but this is exactly the kind of thing that Republicans would do. They just want it so that they can comb through it and see if they can find anything to go after probably Hillary Clinton. That said, in 2012, a federal court rejected the organization's claims, concluding that the tapes were personal records, not official presidential materials. Okay, so that's it. That's why the Trump team didn't use that case, because it wouldn't have mattered. Jackson's ruling explicitly stated that Presidential Records Act distinguishes presidential records from personal records. Those tapes were Bill Clinton's personal records and didn't have anything to do with him as president, right? They were just something that were personal. But now, by the way, personal records are defined as documents that are purely private or non-public character. Completely different than the the Presidential Records Act documents that were, taken from Mar-a-Lago. It's just completely different. And look, here's the thing. The FBI does not want Donald Trump's personal crap. They could care less about his personal stuff. What they want is the classified government documents that he took from the White House when he left. The stuff that does not belong to Donald Trump. And among the things that he took were classified documents involving the nuclear capabilities of a foreign country, as well as documents that were at such a high level of classification that only cabinet level or higher could actually view them. Not some, these are documents that not some rando who decides to walk into Mar-a-Lago and, go to the storage closet should be able to find. And so this case is not even comparable. And yet he brings it up. Very, very strange. Now, to me, I think desperation. Obviously. Because you don't bring something up that your legal team didn't even attempt to use because it wouldn't have applied randomly on a Friday morning. It just feels like he's throwing everything at the wall, including the ketchup, because maybe he feels like those same walls are closing in. I'm not entirely sure, but there it is. Okay. Let's go to the Twitter. Oh boy, more Twitter files. On Thursday, Twitter users were treated to the newest dump from Chief Twit Elon Musk. This time, presented by Barry Weiss. So now, the Twitter Files 2.0 claims to have uncovered evidence that Twitter had previously engaged in what they call shadow banning of conservatives on the platform. Shadow ban. It's not like a normal banning because it's shadows, something. Last week, Matt Taibbi claimed that people on both sides of the political aisle had successfully lobbied to content that they did not like, but that the system was biased against people on the right. So now this continues where Barry Weiss claims to have some, some dumps. We got
big, massive dumps.
Okay, that she claimed showed that bias was then also expressed in the shadow banning of conservative voices. Oh, people with large, gigantic followings on Twitter. Well, wait a minute. Okay, so they already had gigantic followings, and so their tweets, and I'll basically tell you what's going on, but they could still reach their massive audiences. So, but anyway, okay, let me read one of her posts. She said a new Twitter Files investigation reveals that the teams of Twitter employees build blacklists. Oh, blacklists. Prevent disfavored tweets from trending. Oh no. And actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret. Very, very secret, without informing users. Then she showed tags in the accounts of Charlie Kirk and Dan Bongino that apparently limited the reach of their posts. A photo posted by Weiss, Bongino's account has a search blacklist tag on it, while Kirk's has one that says, do not amplify. So now, of course, the contention here is conservatives are saying, well, Twitter said they weren't, shadow banning accounts. Twitter says, well, we don't like the term shadow banning. In fact, we just want to call it visibility filtering. Okay. So now, here's the thing. No shit. I mean, of course this happened. Are you telling me that social media companies have opaque algorithms and practices that are not open to their users? Yeah, of course they do. They all do. They all do. Yeah, YouTube does it. Look, and here's the thing. This is not new. This is not a gigantic bombshell that is like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I had no idea that this was happening. No, of course, we all knew it was happening. This is public knowledge. Wow, congratulations, Barry Weiss, on your scoop. Scoop of the century. What's next? Water being wet? Well, maybe from the standpoint of water. Look, back in 2018, and by the way, here's the thing. They're saying it's not public knowledge. They didn't inform anybody or inform users. Really? Back in 2018, Twitter announced that it would hide tweets from conversations and search results, i.e., visibility filtering. This is according to Washington Post's Will Oramus. Twitter at the time said that it would look the way other individuals reacted to an account in order to avoid showing tweets that would detract from conversations. So, Twitter said that, while tweets were not being removed from the platform most of the time, unless, of course, they did break their terms of service, and I think that's important to note, but they did remove them from the search and have them more difficult to find. But if you follow those people or if you regularly go to their Twitter page, then their tweets are all right there. Again, you know who does that? Every single other platform. YouTube has literally done that to us. I mean, we're not in the recommended search. No, people have to come to our page and go and actually find the videos. And they've done the same thing to every single independent media publisher on the platform. So basically, the audiences are not growing for a lot of lefty channels. You have, Humanist Report, Rational National, Secular Talk, myself, many, many others. We haven't seen sub growth in years. Recommendations for all users interested in news get pushed towards legacy media outlets. Now, we haven't been removed from the platform, but we're not exactly elevated either, not the way that it used to be. So this is not a secret when it comes to YouTube either. We've known this has happened for a very long time. Again, it's not a secret on Twitter either. And honestly, for YouTube, it's a response mainly from advertisers. Want to make sure that their ads don't get put next to like ISIS videos or white nationalists, and also because YouTube happens to favor legacy media corporations. And so those legacy media corporations who have a lot of influence, i.e. money, they want to make sure that they get favorable preference in the algorithm. So, that's why you have this authoritative source change, which elevates authoritative sources, i.e. legacy media, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Reuters, etc. Those, legacy newspapers, outlets, or news agencies and outlets, they will always be higher up in the search results than independent media channels such as myself. Again, this is not a surprise. It's been happening, and it's been happening for a long time. It's not a surprise that Twitter also ran a similar policy. So back to Weiss. Now, she mentioned two accounts by name. Conservatives Charlie Kirk and Dan Bongino. There's also a doctor's account that were impacted by visibility filtering. So those are her two examples. Now, she didn't say why Twitter had put them under this, visibility filtering. Okay. And I think that's important to note. Because let me give you some examples of things that Charlie Kirk has tweeted out that could have led to the warning of, hey, you might not want to amplify this. So on March 15th of this year, Charlie Kirk just, happened to dead name a trans Biden staffer, Rachel Levine, in a tweet. So yeah, that's pretty crappy. It's not a good thing to do because, of course, it directs, hate towards a trans woman. It also falsely smeared a California senator named Scott Weiner. Here's what he tweeted about Scott, saying, quote, "Thousands of pedophiles in California are going free after just a few months in jail, thanks to the state's radically reduced penalties for child molestation. One reason why so many of these predators are going free so early is California lawmaker Scott Weiner." Wait, so he's basically just saying, oh, you see this guy? He loves pedophiles. Yeah, he's a pedophile enabler. Maybe he's a pedophile himself. Now, Scott Weiner is a openly gay politician and a senator in California. And first off, okay, California has not reduced the penalties for child molestation. That is a complete and utter lie. And it's a dangerous lie, but it goes along with what the right wing has been doing, accusing everyone who is LGBT of being groomers. So now Kirk was also referencing in a bill, SB 145. It's a bill passed by the California State Senate on August 31st, 2020. Again, he claimed that it legalized pedophilia, which again, not true at all. It's just completely false. The bill is actually intended to reform the state sex offender registry in order to treat all statutory rape cases, regardless of whether the perpetrator or someone involved is LGBTQ, equally the same, as to not be more harsh against a person who is LGBT versus someone who is not. So it's just trying to treat everyone equally under the eyes of the law. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yet, Charlie Kirk says, oh, no, it helps pedophiles. Sure. Weiner was also behind the passage of a California law that protects families traveling from places where it is illegal for children to receive gender-affirming care. So now gender-affirming care means things like puberty blockers, right? And also, part of gender-affirming care just also means being able to change your name to one that is of your preferred gender. your gender identity, being able to dress, and socialize in the way that, suits and matches your gender identity. That's it. But again, Kirk says, no, it's pedo. He's pedo. He's enabling pedos. So obviously that's going to have some effects. Those lies have consequences. In fact, earlier this week, BuzzFeed News reported that the senator had received a death threat on Tuesday from someone, unsurprisingly, calling him a pedophile and a groomer. Are you surprised? No, shouldn't be surprised. Now, Weiner basically calls out Charlie Kirk for those threats and attributes them to homophobic lies promoted by Kirk and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who also spread that same lie on Twitter. Gee, I don't understand why Charlie Kirk's account would be considered something that Twitter wouldn't have wanted to amplify. Because it gets death threats to people over nonsense lies. You had the Club Q shooting over this, over, drag queens. Again, put out, like, you had these lies spread across social media, places like Libs of TikTok, that are going around and saying these are groomer events, it's the pedophiles. And then you have, of course, people that will arm themselves and they will go in and they will do violence and murder. That's why you don't want to have these, accounts have that much reach. If you don't like that kind of violence, which everyone should abhor, but unfortunately, only most people abhor it, except for the people who follow Charlie Kirk, who are into the QAnon conspiracy theories, who are in the far right, who love doing this, violence against, people in the LGBTQ community, and people who promote it, like Tim Pool, many others. And they're friends with Elon Musk. They're all buddy, kissing Musk's ass and getting preferential treatment. Now, this is defamation to a sitting senator from Charlie Kirk. And by the way, I'm pretty sure it's not a big stretch to say that I'm sure Charlie Kirk hoped that something bad would happen to Scott Weiner. By putting out those tweets, you're saying, look at this pedophile enabler. Maybe somebody should do something about him. Wink, wink. Now, the Twitter files posted by Barry Weiss left out that possible reasoning. Left out reasons why some of these accounts might be quote unquote shadow banned or have their visibility filtered because what they're doing is promoting hatred and violence against a community that has already been targeted with hatred and violence. And this is my big issue with the Twitter files. They left out context. They leave out the context of why Twitter is making these decisions. And they're doing so for, in order to push the narrative that the people were targeted, that these big accounts, conservative accounts, were targeted because they're conservative, because they have conservative values. It's not about being conservative. It's about lying to millions of people and putting their lives in danger. That's the problem here. You are actively putting out hate, lies, and disinformation that is galvanizing people to take violent action against a group of people that are already, again, being targeted at the state level and sometimes even at the national level. It's disgusting. By the way, I'm pretty sure some of the other ones, other accounts were flagged because they were supporting Capitol rioters, the insurrectionists. Now, I also have an issue with the lack of reporting on lefty accounts, because I'm pretty sure it's not just right-wingers that have had their accounts limited in reach. But I sincerely doubt that Musk is interested in sharing those details. That said, the policy here, by the way, it's not even a new policy. In fact, the visibility filtering sounds very familiar to something, we heard recently. Now, where did I hear that from? Oh, right. Elon Musk. Hate speech impressions continue to decline despite significant user growth. That's what happens when you redefine what hate speech is. Freedom of speech, and this is the important part, doesn't mean freedom of reach. Negativity should and will get less reach than positivity. So, there you go. Literally Elon Musk's policy. That said, I'm pretty sure there will be a change in how it's done, which is to say that Twitter will no longer look at transphobic tweets as examples of hate speech. So there's that. Look, Twitter is no longer a place that is limiting homophobic and transphobic tweets, which is essentially what the right wing has wanted all along, a place to spew their hatred to the masses. Now, the thing is, they couldn't do it on Parler. I mean, yes, they could, but no one else was there. Couldn't really do it on True Social because, again, no one else was there. So they had to take over a bigger platform and then loosen the rules, but for them only, so that they can go and spew hate and transphobia. That's it. And the N-word, anti-Semitism, all of that. And look, the accounts that Musk had brought back from, to the platform that were previously banned are the ones that either, again, did massive transphobia, of TikTok, again, that led to bomb threats at hospitals, children's hospitals. They even brought back the founder of the Daily Stormer. And of course, you had Jordan Peterson, who dead-named Elliot Page, on and on and on. That's who they brought back. So, the newest Twitter files. Look, the one thing that they still haven't proven, however, and this is our claim, is that, Twitter, in doing all this, they violated the free speech. First Amendment. Except then again, they don't understand what the First Amendment means. Twitter is not a state actor, and the First Amendment only applies to state actors. So unless you nationalize Twitter, which Elon Musk is not going to do, then it's not governed by free speech, the First Amendment. And it states, by the way, that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the press. But as I said before, Twitter is not the government. I don't know why conservatives cannot understand that. Elon Musk doesn't seem to understand that. I thought he was supposed to be a genius. You're supposed to be a genius, aren't you? Apparently you're stupid. You're a bigot. You're a gigantic moron. You don't understand what free speech is. No. And look, by the way, Elon Musk, now that he's in control of Twitter, does seem to understand that he can do whatever he wants with his platform and bring whoever he wants back and ban whatever and whoever he wants. And we understand it. We've known that the whole time. That's what we're trying to tell you. Yet, again, there is a whole lot of conservatives who seem to be very confused about what the First Amendment actually means. So let me give you some context, right? Court case, just as recently as 2020, among many others, by the way, it basically showed that digital platforms are not state actors, and because of that, the government cannot restrict them in any way. Okay? In 2020, Prager University sued Google for allegedly violating their free speech. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rejected their claim and ruled that YouTube is not a state actor. They can ban or restrict or do whatever to whomever they want because it is their platform. They own it. You sign a terms of service, and if you violate it, they can ban you. But I will tell you why they keep pushing this lie. It makes them money, and they get to play the victim. They lie about the government censoring them, and the morons send them their money. Their viewers don't seem to be smart enough to know the difference between the government and corporations and what free speech actually is, and what the Constitution actually says about free speech. Okay. Anyway, I spent too much time on that. Let's move on. The Daily Stormtrooper, just about, yeah. Okay. Let's have some fun.
I hope and pray that my colleagues will find the courage to join me in opposing this misguided and this dangerous bill. And I yield back.
That crying bigot you saw is Representative Vicky Hartzell, who was begging Republicans to reject the Respect for Marriage Act. So now, context, the bill repeals the Defense of Marriage Act. That was the 1996 federal law that banned same-sex marriage and requires states to recognize valid same-sex marriages from their states. It also ensures some protections for interracial marriage as well. And it's weird that we're having a conversation, but okay, about that. Now, that said, it's not a perfect bill. Individual states are not legally required to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. So if Obergefell happened to be struck down by the Supreme Court, which is a possibility, well, then you would have red states that could refuse to grant marriage licenses. Although, they would have to recognize them if a same-sex couple ends up coming to their state. So now, the whole thing about marriage, again, what we're talking about here is two different things. There's a religious marriage, and then there's the marriage as a civil institution. So the civil institution of marriage has certain benefits to it. For example, tax benefits. And also allows partners to make medical decisions if the other partner happens to be in the hospital, which are the same rights under the law that are granted to every single marriage between cisgender couples. That is it. Wow, tax benefits. Now, this is not what conservatives are raging about. Nonetheless, they're going around claiming, this is silencing people of faith. No. How does it silence you? How does it silence you? How does it affect you at all? They're out there acting like marriage as a civil institution is the same as marriage as a religious ceremony. It's not. You can be legally married without stepping foot in a church. I know, I've done it. That's how I got married, in a courthouse. Or I should say that's where I got married, in a courthouse. But at the same time, you actually can't get married if you don't sign the legal agreement. And here's what it's about. The agreement, the legal agreement, the tax benefits. Two gay people getting married in a, whether it be in an LGBTQ friendly church or synagogue or wherever, or in a courthouse, it doesn't affect anyone else's lives. And not in one single way. There's not one single example that they could actually point to where someone getting married, two gay people getting married, has any sort of effect on their own marriage. But yet people like Hartzler understand the entitlement. They think they own marriage. Yeah. And they think that they can tell you what to do and who you can get married to. Well, I got news for you. You don't own it. And by the way, when they are reminded of that fact, they scream and they cry and they bitch and moan as if they're the victims, as if they have been victimized. Look, if you don't like gay marriage, don't get in one. Don't have one. If you don't like abortion, don't get an abortion. Stop trying to run everybody else's lives. You want to talk about freedom? Well, what part of what you're pushing forward is freedom? No, it's freedom for you. It's freedom for you to run everybody else's life. It's freedom for you to tell everyone else what to do. And I guess when you lose that freedom, you think you're the one that's being oppressed. Now there's more. In an interview with Tony Perkins, she said this. They act like they're being so magnanimous in this bill to protect our pastors to not force them to carry out same-sex marriage ceremonies. Again, nobody's asking for the ceremony. They're just asking for the tax benefits. She says, and yet they trample on the freedom of everyone else in this country. It's a very sad situation, and it's deceiving. In what way is it trampling on anyone else's marriage? Or anyone else's freedom? It's not. It's not. Again, I've been married 11 years to my wife. A gay couple getting married has absolutely no impact on my marriage. In fact, we happen to be overjoyed when people that we care about, that happen to be same-sex couples, are able to find love and happiness with each other. That's wonderful. However, apparently this bigot Karen would rather people be miserable as long as they do what she wants. And maybe she wants it because she is miserable. Happy people do not go around trying to ruin things for everyone else that do not concern them. They are miserable. And that's what this bigoted piece of crap is trying to do. And I am happy that she failed. So now, one more thing. This is the best part. Turns out, Hartzler has a gay family member, a nephew named Christopher, and I'm actually going to let him have the last word.
Today, a United States Congresswoman, my Aunt Vicky, started crying because gay people like me can get married.
I hope and pray that my colleagues will find the courage to join me in opposing this misguided and this dangerous bill. And I yield back.
So, despite coming out to my aunt this past February, I guess she's still just as much as a homophobe.
Let's be clear. Obergefell is not in danger, but people and institutions of faith are.
Aunt Vicky, that's not right. Institutions of faith like religious universities are not being silenced. They're being empowered by the US government to discriminate against tens of thousands of LGBTQ students because of religious exemptions, but they still receive federal funding.
The bill's implications: submit to our ideology or be silenced.
It's more like you want the power to force your religious beliefs onto everyone else. And because you don't have that power, you feel like you're being silenced. But you're not. You're just gonna have to learn to coexist with all of us. And I'm sure it's not that hard.
There it is. All right, moving on. Get one more. Go to Kirsten Sinema. Oh. Must be awkward on family gatherings. True. True. On Friday, Senator Kirsten Sinema announced that she is leaving the Democratic Party. Oh, no. Now, she made the announcement in a column in the Arizona Republic. Here's what she wrote. There's a disconnect between what everyday Americans want and deserve from our politics and what political parties are offering. Okay, look, on that statement, exactly wrong. Now, of course, it happens to also be one of the reasons for that, or at least she was in the Democratic Party. But she continues, I'm privileged to represent Arizonans of all backgrounds in the U.S. Senate, not for long, and am honored to travel to every corner of our state, listening to your concerns and ideas, and then, of course, running away from them, hiding in the bathroom, and to people, activists who brought up your broken promises on immigration reform. Yeah. She continues, Arizonans, including many registered Democrats or Republicans, are eager for leaders who focus on common sense solutions rather than party doctrine. But if the loudest, most extreme voices continue to drive each party toward the fringes. This is coming from a former Green Party member who once criticized capitalism. Yeah. And then suddenly she gets into power and gets hugely rich. And suddenly she's like, I can't believe there are fringes on the left. Can you believe that? Oh, fringes. Fringes. You know what the fringe in the Democratic Party is? People want health care for everyone. People want, for things like insulin to be free. But you know who doesn't benefit from free insulin? Corporations, pharmaceutical companies, the ones that happen to pay Kirsten Sinema a ton of money. A ton of money. But anyway, she continues, these kinds of lasting legislative successes, if party leaders stay more focused on energizing their bases than delivering for all Americans, these successes will become rarer. Oh no. So now, look, Sinema, her statement's just all garbage. Okay. Sinema is most well known for being the lone vote against the raising of the minimum wage. Okay? She killed something the majority of Americans support. She also refused to carve out an exception to the filibuster to pass voting rights. Once again, backed by the majority of the country. I'll give you some poll numbers on that. 63% of likely voters expressed support for the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act, including 82% of Democrats. Well, of course, she's not a Democrat anymore, so I guess it doesn't matter. Well, what about for independents, her new team? Turns out 62% of independents support the John Lewis Freedom to Vote Act. Weird. And of course, even 42% of Republicans were in favor of it. Now she says, well, look, we would love to have that, but it's got to be bipartisan. We can't just blow up the filibuster for this. I mean, that would be against, the wishes of the American people, right? Now, it turns out 53% of Americans also support changing the filibuster rules in order to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So, weird. It seems to be that she is doing all the things that her voters don't want. That's very, very strange. Very strange. Now, she ends it by saying, and again, there's a lot of just nonsense in her post, but she said, when politicians are more focused on denying the opposition party a victory, you just, describe the Republican Party there, than they are in improving Americans' lives, the people who lose are everyday Americans. That's why I've joined the growing numbers of Arizonans who reject party politics by declaring my independence from the broken partisan system in Washington. I registered as an Arizona independent. So it's funny because Sinema has actually really only denied her voters when it comes to policy. She's been against every single popular idea supported by the majority of her voters in Congress. Look, let's be clear. The only people that Kirsten Sinema cares about are her corporate donors. That's it. She will serve them even more now than she previously has. In fact, I believe the biggest reason she left the Democrats is because she knows that she'll never win a Democratic primary. Oh, hell no. Hell no. The Arizona Democratic Party, they hate her. They despise her. Look at poll numbers for her favorability. It's not good. But the Arizona Democratic Party had previously censured her for refusing to serve the interests of the voters in her state and pass policies like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Now, the advantage of her being an independent over a Democrat now is that she does not have to go into a primary election if she decides to run, which I doubt. But if she does, she could still pop into a general, be a spoiler, and help a Republican win. Now, why would she want to do that? Donors. Donors. That's it. That's going to help her corporate donors. Yes, look, if the Democratic Party of Arizona was already looking to primary her with someone who was more progressive. So she wouldn't win that primary because her voters despise her. And so, look, why go through all that when you could be an independent, run in a general election anyway, be a spoiler candidate, and destroy the Democrats' chances of retaining that seat? And then, of course, the Republican gets into power and blocks everything that progressives are trying to do and helps Republicans and Republican donors. That's all it's about. That's all it's about. So, look, and by the way, until that happens, because she's still in office till 2024, Democrats will still try to court her. They still will need her or Manchin to pass things. Unless, of course, they can get, the vice president to come in and do a tie-breaking vote. But if anything, she will spend the rest of her term servicing the donors as much as they can in order to secure herself a good job after she inevitably leaves Congress. There's no way she is going to get reelected. There's no way. Only 37% of all likely voters view her favorably. She is underwater by 17 points. She's at negative 17. Among Democrats, 57% viewed her unfavorably. Even among independents, 51% say they view her unfavorably. Another poll conducted in July by Data for Progress and the local Arizona news outlet, the Copper Courier, found that Sinema only had a 42% approval rating among state residents, and only 34% of Arizona voters viewed her favorably. Because, of course. Now, the response to this is unsurprising. A lot of people slamming Sinema, and she deserves every little bit of it. Bulwark columnist Amanda Carpenter said this: feels more like Sinema is announcing her Senate retirement early than a real change in party affiliation. We shall see. Terry Carter, who's a Kentucky-based columnist, said Kirsten Sinema translated, well, this won't be any fun at all now, so I need to find some other thing that will make me seem important. Matthew Gertz points out a very possible issue here. Rather than risking a primary defeat, she's created a scenario where if the Democrats run a candidate in the 2024 general, they risk throwing the race to the likes of Kari Lake. NBC News correspondent Mark Caputo said, lots of ifs with Sinema, a big one if she runs for re-election. That will make it a three-way race next year with a Democrat and a Republican on the ticket who very well could be Kari Lake. Communications specialist Michael Starr Hopkins said, Dems win a clear majority in the Senate, and Sinema's reaction is to leave the party to continue taking hostages for Big Pharma. Well, that is her biggest donor. Sinema isn't just a fraud. She's what stupid people think an independent looks like. I stand by everything I've ever said about her. Oh, it just keeps getting better. Former New York congressional candidate Melanie Darrigo says, don't overthink Senator Kirsten Sinema switching from Democrat to independent. She's not driven by ideology. She's driven by which corporations and lobbyists are giving her the most money, which makes her an elected mercenary, not an elective representative of the people. Elected mercenary. God damn. Ohio-based Attorney Jesse Taylor said this: congratulations to Senator Sinema, who can finally pursue her policy passions of and represent the vital interests she cares about, herself. Finally, Chris Lavoie, a radio executive, said, Sinema is blatantly power hungry. When I lived in Tempe, she ran as a Green. Now she wants to convince Arizonans and the rest of the country that she's a quirky maverick. She is none of that. Her vacillation shows that Senator Sinema has no core values. And I agree. All of that. Her value is money. What can I get for myself and my corporate donors? Clear example of someone who is a bait and switch candidate who has just always been out for what helps her the most. Okay. Moving on. One last quick story. Okay. If there's anything multinational corporations hate, it's competition, which is why they keep trying to crush it. In fact, one of the ways that they're trying to do so is to prevent 2 antitrust bills from being introduced into the Senate. So now, right now, Republicans are in the midst of being showered in donations by business groups. One business group even went and sent a letter to top House and Senate Republicans. So now, the Competitiveness Coalition last week sent a letter. Now think about that for a second. The name, Competitiveness Coalition. You know, of course, they're going to be in favor of anything that stops real competitiveness. They're against antitrust bills, and they call themselves the Competitiveness Coalition. It's hilarious. Now, they issued this letter, and they said this: the American Innovation and Choice Online Act and the Open Markets Act are something that Republicans should vote against. The legislation, let me explain it for a second. The bills, for one, seek to prevent large tech companies from abusing their market power to harm competition, online businesses and consumers, and authorizes the FTC, the Department of Justice, and state attorneys general to challenge self-preferencing by online platforms of a certain size as defined in terms of annual sales, market cap, or active users. So now Apple is a big one of the biggest companies that would be impacted by this. Their Apple Store, they take like 30%. So anyone who puts something in the Apple Store and sells it, automatically Apple gets 30% of that cut. So, and they can also put forward their own products, their own apps ahead of everyone else in their App Store. So they've got basically what is a digital monopoly. It's insane. Amazon is another company that would be impacted by this. For example, on that, Amazon, of course, features other sellers. So the law, if it was passed, would allow agencies to sue if a platform is shown to prefer its own products. For example, Amazon, which has its own line of batteries, over competing products sold on its site. So what they do is that they, of course, when they do preferential treatment, is to put their own products from their own store above everyone else's. So you can see that how that would disadvantage smaller sellers who also are forced to sell on Amazon because it's one of the few in these digital monopolies, ways of getting out your product. It would disadvantage them over Amazon and their own in-store or in-brand products. So you see how they, are crushing competition. These bills would actively try to stop them from crushing that competition. Google also would be impacted by this because, of course, you have the Google search results, and Google likes to put itself over all other search results and other, search aggregators. So now, these are, again, the companies that are being impacted, which is why these lobbying groups representing these companies are out there spending millions of dollars pushing Congress to tank the bill or to stall it. So I talked about this before, several different segments where Chuck Schumer could introduce the bill, and so far he has not. And by the way, it's bipartisan. So you have both Republicans and Democrats that are saying, yeah, this is bad. We would like to have some competition. We would like for these big tech companies to not be able to do self-preferential treatment. We would like to actually open it up for smaller people, to do a little competition, which is actually also good for the consumers. That said, the Competitiveness Coalition doesn't agree. They said, in light of our troubled economy, we request that you whip a no vote should current Democratic leadership attempt a full Senate vote. In the House, we similarly request that you resist any attempts to conflate concerns about content moderation with so-called antitrust regulation. Now, the two bills, they said, are considered the crown jewels of the antitrust agenda championed by the left's most strident antitrust activists or advocates, including Senators Amy Klobuchar and Richard Blumenthal. They further advise that Republicans oppose the pieces of legislation because they would, in their words, ignore the economic concerns of the country, exacerbate inflation, which even Democratic economists such as Larry Summers have highlighted about these bills. We tell you, nobody should listen to Larry. And then also they put in, weirdly, it would reward Klobuchar's political ambitions. And that would be a reason to oppose it. We don't want Amy Klobuchar passing something that would be good for consumers because that would reward her. They conclude by writing the results of the elections have created opportunities and obligations for the next Congress. Atop that list is addressing the economic uncertainty coursing throughout our country. Yeah, you know why we have such high inflation, by the way? Corporate greed. You have corporations that are price gouging people and making massive amounts of profit. Companies that this group happens to represent. So, by the way, a lot of them get away with it because they're the only game in town. And so they can easily do, when they're monopolies, price collusion. Set their prices in a way that are high. And then, of course, other companies that are in the other monopolies, they'll set the prices high as well because there's no competition. There's no real competition that will challenge them at all. But they continue. Asked which issue mattered most this year, nearly a third of voters said inflation, 32%, according to NBC News exit polls, ensuring that neither S2992 or S2710 becomes law would be two productive steps towards fulfilling their mandate. They're pretending that voters are in favor of less competition. And they're claiming inflation? Ridiculous. No, reining companies like Amazon, Apple, and Google would be good for the economy. It would actually help, again, increase competition which will drive down prices. These are flat out lies from groups that represent big corporations. Again, the bills will actually help small app developers and sellers on those platforms. And they would also break the power of these big tech companies and allow this competition. So the question, of course, is why hasn't it gotten through Congress? Well, again, I just noted that there has been a massive amount of lobbying. And really, at this point, you also have Chuck Schumer, who continues to promise, I'll bring it up to a vote, I'll bring it up to a vote, and then never does. Because he has also corporate interests. Thing is, now what these companies are doing is they're reaching out to Republicans and they're saying, look, if Schumer gets pressured enough, because there has been a pressure campaign on Chuck Schumer, you know, to get him to introduce this while there is still bipartisan support, they're saying, Republicans, tank it, please. We are very, very scared. We are very concerned that, you know, we are not going to be able to tank this antitrust legislation. Please help us. We'll give you whatever you want. And we'll lie about it. So, as I said, they also are saying, look, you don't even have to tank it. Just make sure that it doesn't come up for a vote. Because we know that in the next Congress, when Republicans take the House, there is absolutely no chance this is getting through. So all you have to do is either tank it if it comes up for a vote, or, you know, we're going to try to run out the clock. And that way we win and you win, because we're going to continue padding your pockets. So, look, as I said, there's not a lot of time here. With it still being bipartisan and with them increasing their lobbying, there is a chance that it can pass. But the ball is in Chuck Schumer's court. Look, even the Biden White House has listed the bills on their lame duck priority list and hinted at stepping up engagement on it. Well, we have yet to see that engagement, at least in public. Maybe behind the scenes, they're trying to whip Schumer. But again, we have not seen action. So that said, maybe there needs to be, I don't know, a more of a public push to try to push Schumer to introduce it before time runs out. Again, Chuck Schumer would probably be more than happy to, you know, ignore the bill and let the lame duck session run out. We should not let that happen. Even if it doesn't do anything, we can at least make our voice heard to say that, hey, we put it out there. We put it out there. And so if you want to do that, go to bidenpromised.us. It takes you like 5 seconds to fill out. Again, it might not do anything. Might not listen to it. At least it'll be there. And again, it takes almost no time to fill out. Like 5 seconds, 10 seconds at most. So do it anyway. What's it going to cost you? Nothing. bidenpromised.us. Make your voice heard at least. Anyway. That's all I got. I'm massively out of time. So let me read a couple of super chats before we go. Gabby Mathis says, love your Bernie shirt. Thank you. I appreciate that. Boulder Crypto Sissy Dragon says, I know great minds think alike, but please stop reading mine. I'm not reading your mind. I'm not stealing your brain cable, okay? I quarantine, you will not be learning anything. Strange comment, but thank you for the super chat anyway. Let's see. For what? Sorry, I missed it. Melissa Terry, go to bidenpromised.us to try to pressure members of Congress to bring up two very, very important antitrust pieces of legislation. It'll take you like 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds at most to fill out. And it's just a way to make your voice heard, to try to pressure Schumer to introduce that bill. It is a bipartisan bill. and it has a chance at passing. There are, again, Republican and Democratic, congressmen that have signed on to this. If we could introduce it and pass it, you can rein in Amazon, Google, Apple, Meta, Facebook, and make it so that there is more competition in those marketplaces. Okay. Anyway, hopefully that answers your question. And thank you, all those of you who have appreciate that. On Twitch, thank you, Twitch viewers. We will raid in to a hold. Let's do a left flank vets raid. Everyone else, have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Love you, and remember, change begins with you.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Mike Pounds.
Clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it.
You idiot!
Disappointed!
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who can.